It seems Donald Trump is absolutely insistent on causing a trade war between the three NAFTA countries. All of his rhetoric is designed to do nothing but absolutely provoke a trade war between these countries. Now, I'm of the opinion that there's not really going to be a physical war between the United States and Canada or the United States and Mexico. That's just simply not going to happen. I just cannot see it getting to that point. This is mostly bluffing. This is shooting his mouth off, trying to make himself look tough and acting hard. But it's interesting that he chose to go after the two biggest, closest allies of the United States, who frankly could no longer consider the United States to be their allies, as if the United States was really the ally of anyone. It's interesting looking at what's being risked here, and not to mention tariffs on China as well, but less tariffs on China because, well, that's a little bit more scarier considering everything's made in China, including all of the Trump merchandise. I mean, Mexico alone in November 2024 accounted for $466 billion in trade. So that's something pretty interesting. So in all of this, blaming everybody for America's problems except, America itself and it's America's own policies, except when it's convenient to, and only when it can be blamed on a previous administration who had absolutely nothing to do with the problem. Right. It's Biden's fault for, like everything. Like, I mean, literally Trump's cat could throw up on the carpet and it would still be Biden's fault. And there are some things that you can rightfully criticize Biden for. But these aren't the things. So the response has been to the tariffs. Mexico agreed to put 10,000 National Guard troops on the border to block the flow of fentanyl and other drugs, which I find to not really be a real concession, considering that fentanyl isn't really coming from Mexico all that much as it is coming from inside U.S. borders. And I find it hilarious that fentanyl is in such great abundance. I almost suspect that pharmaceutical companies just mysteriously lose crates and crates of this stuff every year. I mean, what do they care as long as they get their money, right? I mean, they literally let people die from a lack of insurance and get out of having to, not lack of insurance because they're not insurance companies. Pharmaceutical companies don't care. Well, how much they charge for life-saving drugs. And clearly they don't give a shit about human life. So why would I think that they'd be different here? But most of it isn't even actually coming from Mexico. Some of it is, but not that much. Canada, on the other hand, got a reprieve for 1 month from tariffs by agreeing to invest. This was what Justin Trudeau said. Justin Trudeau agreed to $200 million for fighting cartel activity on the northern border. I want you to think about that. Sinaloa cartel, all the drug cartels that are operating in South America, they're going to invest money into fighting them on the northern border where they don't operate. So it's funny. Now keep in mind that Canada has only promised to earmark this money for it. Whether or not Canada actually spends the money on doing that is another question. And there's no guidelines by which they have to prove that they actually spent the money on these efforts fighting the cartels on the border where they're not. So Trump's running around like a chicken, just in random directions, yelling and screaming, I win, I win, I win, I made them concede, look how strong I am. And really, he's gotten nothing. He's gotten a promise from Canada that means absolutely nothing. And he's got an agreement from Mexico to essentially do something that isn't even going to make much of a difference. But in his mind, he's done it. He's broken the Allies and forced them to do stuff, made them bend to his will, and all that kind of nonsense. Because in his mind, and the mind of others, this means America still rules. Like the U.S. hasn't found itself in a new world, unlike the post-Cold War one that has existed for decades. A multipolar, multi-enemy situation. Both Russia and China are both out there, and both of them doing what's in their best interests, which includes imperialism. Now America feels surrounded. And when it feels surrounded, it feels scared, like it now has to lash out at its allies in order to project strength. Because lashing out at their enemies, well, that would get much more serious responses. Because a lot of those allies have been turning towards China and Russia. Now, I'm not referring to Canada or Mexico turning to China. I'm talking about the other allies, Saudi Arabia and the like. And because people now have an alternative to turn to, and now Mexico, part of the BRICS payment system, this doesn't make BRICS the good guy. This doesn't make Russia and China the bad guy. It makes them competing imperialist powers because they're both still capitalist, even in the most hilariously brainwashed, dangest level, thinking that Russia is somehow good, even though it is capitalist. So capitalism bad, except when Russia does it. Or, to be more specific, capitalism bad unless Putin does it. Then all of a sudden capitalism is good. But it's an alternative, guys. That way you have something else to turn to, so therefore good. Having an alternative to something bad doesn't make the alternative good. It makes you desperate. You're desperate to think that it's good, because there is nothing else to turn to. A rotten apple looks better than a poisoned apple. This doesn't make China or Russia the good guys. They're both capitalists in the stage of imperialism, the stage of monopoly capital, where they're performing imperialism. But this is where the United States finds itself now, in a position where the only way that they can project strength is to lash out at their own allies. The people who are supposed to be the closest to them, the most ideologically linked to them, are the ones that are on the receiving blow of hostility. And simply why? Because the United States can't project that strength onto the people that are turning against them, onto the people that are opposing them. Because then there'd be real consequences. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.